Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Westman, and it's my pleasure to be with you today. Today, I thought I would talk about carb creep. And there are lots of things that happen early on when you start a keto diet, and carb creep is one of them. I'm learning that a lot of the long-term issues have to do more with mindset than the actual list of foods itself. So please take advantage of the ability to watch classes and to help with all the mindset issues. It's funny, I get to tell people, or I give people permission not to eat so much, which seems kind of silly, but that is one of the real issues that we have. We've been given the opportunity to have a bounty of food around pretty much all the time. So it's great to see everyone chiming in. So what is carb creep? And as I mentioned a moment ago, after I talked a little while, we're going to bring in some people telling their stories, which would be pretty exciting. I like the idea that you're telling and helping, as time goes on, just as much as me is, I'm helping with the medical side, but there's so many other issues that come up. So let me go back, give a little perspective, a little story. When I got involved with this, a few of my patients did the Atkins diet. They lost about 50 pounds, and it was like lightning striking in my clinic office. Not many people lost weight. I was working at the VA Veterans Hospital in Durham, and so I was curious, and I followed this signal of a couple people had success, and like a lot of doctors, I thought that, this is all new to me, even though I've learned that it's been around a long time ever since. But what I wanted to do was to figure out a way to study this. I mean, I had concerns about safety and long-term, what would happen, just like a lot of doctors are having that as they wake up to it today. But so one of the things I decided to do was to leverage my travel for my work to visit doctors who were using low-carb diets. So if you can imagine, in 1998, I went to the bookstore, and it wasn't like now there are so many keto books. There were just a few low-carb books, and I remember Protein Power leapt off the shelf to me because there were two doctors in a clinic in the Midwest, Mike and Mary Dan Eads, and I read the book, and it was interesting. Of course, this is all new to me. I never got any training on this issue of weight loss or of nutrition in my medical education, and that's pretty much still true today. So that the Protein Power book was one that you may have read it even before, and it said you would stay to 20 grams of carbs basically forever. And Mike and Mary Dan Eads, doctors in a clinic, family medicine docs, that was very interesting. But when I tracked down, I was going to go visit them, they had no clinic. They were already out of practice. They'd already retired, and I couldn't visit their office. So I go to the next book on the shelf, and it's the Atkins diet book. It was the New Revolution because it was rewritten in the 1990s. And so I looked on there, and Dr. Atkins was a doctor, and I thought, this is interesting. So I visited Dr. Atkins in New York City after a brief phone call where, he basically, I wrote a letter, he called back, and then he said, what do you want? And I said, well, I'm interested. Your diet seems to have worked for a couple of my patients. If you can imagine, he kind of looked at me like, or talked to me like, yes, so I've been doing this 30 years, right? And I said, well, that's all well and good, but where's the science? Where's the data? And he said, well, it's all in my book. And by this time I had read the New Atkins Diet Revolution book, and I, was ready with the statement back saying it's just anecdotes. It was just anecdotal evidence, which that's what it is when you show cases and talk about something. And then he finally said something like, well, why would I want to do research? Because I know what the research will find. I've been doing it 30 years. And, he either had a point, or was overstating things. So basically he broke the ice and said, why don't you come to my office in New York City? And so I went up for a weekend during the week for a day, one night, had an office visit to his office for the following day, and then basically told him, well, this is all interesting, it seems to work fine, but you need to do some research, and here's a proposal, and I'll go back and do it at Duke. And so that's how I got started in this. But when I went to visit Dr. Atkins, and then when I followed up with Dr. Eades later, I was able to meet him. When I tracked down Dr. Rosedale, who worked with Dr. Eades, it became clear to me that they weren't doing what the book said. So you may have, if you've been, reading about this for a long time, and the books all said to do the first phase, 20 grams, and that's total, not net. Net carbs didn't get introduced until 2005 or 6, and then in the New Atkins book, our book, 2010, net carbs is in there. All that's how you do it. No, the doctors were all using total carbs, which is what I teach you, what I've used in my clinic. It's what I studied. And the doctors were going much longer than that 2-week period. In Atkins language, it's called induction phase. In the South Beach diet, which was a attempted merger of a low-fat and a low-carb idea, it was for 2 weeks. But, I learned that Dr. Agatston, who wrote South Beach Diet, really borrowed everything that he could from Dr. Atkins' book. Turns out Dr. Agatston, who wrote South Beach Diet, hadn't had a weight loss clinic ever. He basically took opportunity of what Dr. Atkins had learned. So I traveling around, I met Dr. Rosedale, who had worked with Dr. Eades, and he was in practice in Boulder, Colorado at the time. And I went and reviewed charts, wrote a paper on aging, diets and aging with him, got it published. I visited Dr. Mary Vernon in Lawrence, Kansas, who had a low-carb practice, and looking at charts, and they were all using 20 grams as long as the patient needed it. So the idea of a short-term induction phase 1, was not what the doctors in the clinics were using. So I just want to reiterate that there's no concern about staying at 20 grams or less if you're feeling well. If you still have weight to lose or diabetes to fix, staying at 20 grams or less is what the clinical doctors who used these approaches, in the late 1800s, they all did it, kept you at this level. So, and that's what we did in our studies, and that's what I've done with people at Duke. I've had people on 20 gram or less now for 15 years since when we started opened our clinic at Duke. So I guess I wanted to tell the story of how I had traveled around to learn and then come up with our own research proposal. And then, of course, we studied over and over and over the 20 gram or less over 6 months or over a year period, and helps to generate the evidence and scientific basis that this is a healthy thing to do. In fact, it's therapeutic, fixes lots of different issues. Pretty much, if I'm in a grandiose mode, it pretty much fixes all the chronic medical conditions that internists use pills and shots for. I'm an internist, internal medicine first, then obesity medicine and keto medicine doctor second and third. So in the Atkins world, I learned from Jackie Eberstein, who worked with Dr. Atkins for 30 years. So, right when I was getting interested in studying this program, Dr. Atkins died. It was the timing was our first paper came out in 2002, and Dr. Atkins died in 2003. He slipped on the ice in New York City, and Dr. Keith Berkowitz found him. Basically, he was on his way to work and died of a brain hemorrhage, brain intracerebral bleed. But the learning still carried on with Jackie and then my research that I've done at Duke. And I just wanted to say that the Atkins language was carb creep. So that another way to think of it is I had a research employee who spent some time deployed in the Middle East, and he said there's a saying that if a camel gets a nose in the tent underneath, it's just a matter of time the camel's going to get into the tent. So carb creep is the insidious creeping of carbs back into your diet that happen almost like that state fair whack-a-mole game, or you see at the arcades where carbs come up and you try to whack them down and they come up and they come up. So carb creep is the major issue right now if you've just started in the first few months or if you've restarted, rebooted. And the good news is over this next period of time, at least in the U.S., we don't have Thanksgiving and although we have Easter coming up, the major holidays are gone, which helps a lot as you're gaining momentum toward your goal. But so carb creep is the language of you don't want to fall victim to the carbs creeping in. And the reason for that is one carb leads to another. You might even be getting into the, I got this. I have some results behind me and I can, this little bit won't hurt me. And then you find out that it does throw you off and it's hard to get back on. So that's the language of carb creep, and I wanted to give you the background perspective that staying this low on the carbs is fine. You don't have to be eating carbs and sugar. And the way carbs can creep back in can be as simple as you feeling a little more confident or overconfident and not realizing that a little bit of sugar can derail you, or not keeping the house clear of the carbs. They kind of creep in, and I'll ask people, well, who bought that? Well, I did. So at first, if you're really having trouble staying away from eating sugar, and although now it should be much easier, just don't have carbs in the house, or if you have carb eaters, you keep the carbs in a separate place up high. I had one couple who arranged that the husband's carbs would be kept in the trunk of the car in the garage. So it just made it more difficult for that person who was staying away from carbs to stay away from the carbs. But other times, other people might give you the, just a little bit won't hurt. And what we've learned with a keto diet, it works best if you're strict 24/7, every day of the week. We're not impressed with the clinical and there's no research evidence about a cheat day. It's not, I know it's out there and people ask me about it all the time. No, when you're fat burning, what Jeff Volek says, Jeff is a researcher at Ohio State. What he says is ketosis and that ketogenic state, it's a fragile state, a fragile metabolism that can be thwarted or knocked off by just a very small amount of sugar or starch. Our best advice is to stay just as strict as you can. If you do have some carbs, you get right back on, not the next day, the next meal. And then, it's going to happen where you're getting a soda somewhere and it's the regular soda, not the diet that you ordered, or you may be tasting something and there's sugar, and that's not a big deal. Remember, it's the total grams of carbs for the whole day. Staying under 20 will probably keep you in ketosis, and a little bit here and there is not going to derail things. Interestingly, the other main thing, so carb creep, just stay away. Like the camel getting into the tent, you don't want the nose in the tent of the camel's nose. The other thing is to let the hunger go away. Let the fat burning relieve you of the urge and need to eat so much. This is a common thing. I mentioned at first with someone who's doing it long term, but even up front at the beginning, I'll see people who are still kind of stuck in the old mindset of I'm supposed to eat 3 meals a day and I have to have this, I have to have that. No. So a big mindset issue, and this works best for people who, I'm not hungry. I'm not going to eat right now. And I know there's a lot of preemptory eating, like I'll hear, well, I was going to work and I know I can get hungry at work, so I was going to eat something, so I prevent the... Bring something along. If you're hungry, then later you'll have something, but actually eating in the morning can make you eat more in the afternoon. And I know it doesn't make sense, but this is the observation that people tell me. So let the fat burning work really well so that your hunger is now tied to the need for protein, which is really what it should be, not the sugar cravings and things like that, or the idea that you've always had 3 square meals with snacks. I want you to get over that just as fast as you can, because the amount of weight loss is directly, if you're losing weight, is directly related to how much you're eating. And the way this works for weight loss is there should be a pretty much automatic reduction in your hunger. So then you eat less, and that is how weight loss occurs. It's not magic. The weight loss occurs because you eat less. Interestingly, I'm now in the academic world asked to be guest editor of issues of journals, and I'm happy to report that I have saying that he's going to do it. Sam Feltham is a young man in the UK who did a diet study on himself, gained weight and lost weight 3 different times with 3 different diets, and at 5,000 calories. It's a fascinating study on himself, and he's going to put it together in writing, and we'll have that. The main issue is that, yes, you gain weight on 5,000 calories a day, even on a keto diet. And so he did 3 different diets, but the fascinating thing is he didn't gain nearly as much on the keto diet as he did on the vegetarian and higher carb, and then the higher carb, low fat one. Interestingly, that's the state of the science, basically. There are no comparative studies like this for different diets like that in a weight gaining mode. And so I hope getting him to write this up and we'll get it published in a journal will stimulate other people to do that sort of study to replicate it in more and more people. But the main point is that, yes, you can eat too many calories and gain weight even on a keto diet. So it's not, the food list itself is a mechanism to get the hunger to go down, to have you eat less. And if that's not happening, you got to work on some of the mindset issues. Watch those videos again about how, breakfast is not the most important meal of the day. And I know we've heard it just for so long. So the early issues, just stay real strict. It's okay to stay strict, as long as you need to. And well, for me, it's been 20 years just because I feel so much better. And the green light is on to really never eat carbs again to any, great degree. The other paper that I helped someone to, or encouraged to write, that got into one of these guest issues was the carnivore diet. Was a nutritious kind of approach. And interestingly, the article was a good one, but I'm not convinced, nor was the author of the article, that there's great evidence to say that it's fine for a long term, because no one has ever studied it and published papers on it. So it's interesting to see. And it's interesting to see everyone glom on to the latest, fasting here, carnivore there. And no, just there's more evidence for this approach, where you eat when you're hungry and have some veggies and greens, but not necessarily a whole lot, just keeping the carbs low. So anyway, I thought I want to keep you up to speed on the other areas that I'm looking at, and in fact encouraging people to write about and to study, because we're at a great moment in the research world where we're actually able to study a low carb keto diet and follow people, and without people saying that it's bad or you can't do it. So watch out for carb creep. In fact, you might chime in if you're noticing that. And as we mentioned in the Keto Made Simple Masterclass, substitutions are a good thing to do. If you crave pasta, there are all sorts of different pasta substitutions you can make. The other kind of rice, cauliflower rice. There's a interesting kind of fried cauliflower rice dish that I saw recently with someone who wanted more Asian cuisine. So if you don't like cauliflower rice, just by itself, make sure you're doing lots of flavoring with it to give you the rice kind of feel. Great. Well, I'm afraid I haven't looked at any of the questions. I'll go to some of the comments and questions as I introduce people. And why don't I start with, I have three people in the waiting room. If you choose to want to get involved in doing this, it's simple. We send you a link. You come to it's like a Zoom sort of thing where you get onto the screen, and I just show you ahead of time what it's going to look like. And so I think we have, maybe 5 or 10 minutes for each of you to tell your story. Esther, if you're ready, give me a little hands up. Fantastic. How are you doing?
Doing really good, Dr. Westman.
So I hope you're not experiencing carb creep.
I did a couple weeks ago and curtailed it real quick.
Excellent. Well, thanks for coming on. This is sort of the first attempt we're doing. So you have free reign to really talk about how things are going. And I'm going to remove myself here. And when you're ready, I'll just come on back. Okay.
Okay. Well, my story began a long time ago. Around when I was 8 years old is when I started gaining weight. And teenage years is when I started dieting, and into my 20s, and that is when yo-yo dieting was pretty much the course that I went. And I tried everything. Still in diet, Weight Watchers, a metabolic diet that really ruined my health. And in May of 2018 is when my brother and sister-in-law introduced me to the concept of keto, and that it really has worked for people in their family, other families. And from there, I bought Gary Taubes' book, Why We Get Fat. And that's how I learned about page 4 in Dr. Westman. And so I started looking at videos, reading books, and seeing the keto really kind of might work for me. And in June 2019, I got to go on one of the keto cruises that are out there, and met Dr. Westman and Amy Berger and Jackie Aberstein, and got to sit in on their classes and learned so much more. And just from from their wisdom and all the things that I learned, I found out that keto really is the way for me to go. I have well ingrained insulin resistance, had PCOS until I had my total hysterectomy at age 50, have hypertension and hypothyroidism. And so I've just been overweight. So in November 16, 2020 is when I joined up the Keto Master Class. And my goal at that time was getting good health, making this a lifestyle, not a diet. And the things that I have learned is just been amazing. My mindset has totally changed in that it's amazing the control in just by having the simplicity of the food plan and all the modules and the support from the team and Facebook, and that has just been totally amazing. My confidence is through the roof, and my husband looks over at me and says, "Who is this person?" Because I could literally eat him under the table any day. So it's been fabulous. Since learning about keto and that, I've lost about 33, 35 pounds. And about 20 of it has been since November when I joined the Keto Made Simple. So thank you very, very much for all that I've learned, the support, and just because of the changes in my life, my brother, sister-in-law, and sister joined the February group for Keto Made Simple. So I'm very, very thankful for everything that's been going on and through the group. And I do have a question for Dr. Westman. I would love to know more about what happens in the brain when you get a good sugar or starch rush. I know it has something to do with dopamine. I have no idea. And how does that trigger the hormone reactions that go on in your body?
Yeah, well, of course, that's a great question. And there's a lot more known about the feeling and what happens in the behavior of repeated administration of the sugar. Sugar makes you want to have more sugar, right? And, popcorn at a movie theater and a big thing like this doesn't turn off your appetite. You keep eating the popcorn. So it is, dopamine is what we talk about in terms of the pleasure center. And there's a little spot in, it's called the nucleus accumbens, and nicotine and cocaine and all the things that give reward happen there. But I think there's more to it than that. And serotonin gets changed. And what's also fascinating there is that there's more serotonin in the gut than in the brain. So that people talk about the gut being the second brain. And where does food go but, to the gut? So we're manipulating all of these hormones by what we eat. And still today, if I get a whole thing of jelly beans, a pound of it, I could eat it. I don't let myself do that. But that's the dopamine is what we think of as the center in the brain where you get the reward and then you want to seek it out again. Yeah. Yeah. And so thank you so much. I think you're right on track. I think in terms of 1 to 2 pounds per week is the general amount of weight loss, and that's the healthiest way to do it. So over the last couple of months, 20 pounds is perfect. And I know a lot of people think that it's not enough or always want it faster. That everyone comes in wanting it faster, but that's right on track and well done. I mean, keep it up. And it's great that you're sending family, and I've encouraged everyone for the word of mouth spread of the information. It's wonderful to see that. The only time I worry, is if a family member or neighbor is on insulin, as I mentioned in the class, it can. So anyway, just try to be sure that by word of mouth, someone doesn't know that they have to be monitored if they have medical problems too.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, I want to thank you, and you guys are an answer to prayer, so I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Keep up the good work. Bye-bye. So, Marvin, are you ready? If you give me just a little thumbs up, fantastic. How are you doing?
So, good. I'm just on my way back to next week's legislative session again, so I get to spend my spare time doing that this time of year, and so on. But
are you a state representative?
Yes, I am in the North Dakota House.
Fantastic. Did you know, or do you know, physician who, Republican friend of mine through the OMA. Okay, his name will come to me. Well, tell me what's on your mind. How are you doing? And I'm going to fade away just here.
Well, I kind of started out. I mean, really, like I look back, I grew up on a farm, so we just ate breakfast and coffee and dinner and lunch and supper, and kind of got on that pattern real early in my life, and then from really my earliest days, if I could have figured out how to drink water on bread, I would have done it. I didn't really do a lot of sugar, but bread, bread was really my thing. And I got in my 30s, I developed fibromyalgia, kept gaining weight. I noticed that if I, anything that I did, like if I ate breakfast food, I'd get hungrier after I ate. And that was really a pattern that I saw for decades. That it didn't seem like there was ever an end to the hunger. And so constantly fighting with that. And it kind of got, actually a couple years ago, kind of the thing that probably triggered it. I was kind of at that pre-diabetic, little, slightly elevated, liver enzymes up a little bit, high blood pressure, all those sort of things going on. And then I got in a car accident and killed a moose. And when I look back now, I can see that really that was the stress that put me over the top and put me into diabetes. And so I went through a tough fall, didn't feel good and everything. And then really just about exactly a year ago, I had a day where things were really obviously not going well. So I went into the emergency room, and I was at a 680 blood sugar, 14.5 A1C. Doctors keep looking like, why are you still alive? And so I spent a few days in the hospital, still at 300 blood sugar, eating the way they told me to. And the physician came. And it's kind of funny how stuff works. She, in the end, was the one who kind of convinced me to do something differently, because she starts right out with, well, don't eat any fat. Don't eat any saturated fat. And I'm going, well, this sounds kind of strange. And then, oh, yeah, and salt. Don't have any salt. And, of course, they think they're going to keep you from having that heart attack that kills all the diabetics. And then she goes on for a while more, and she holds out her hand, and she says, and it's not the corn chip, but just eat a handful of corn chips. And at that point, she lost me, because there was no way in the world I could eat a handful of corn chips. I was going to go to the bottom of the bag. I don't care if it was a super humongo family size. I'm going to the bottom of the bag. So there I was then with a chronic progressive disease, but motivated to check out what's going on. So I go on the internet and I find several people, including Dr. Westman, and it really only took a few days for me to be convinced there has to be a different way. And long story short, a year later, I'm not on any diabetic meds. I'm not on any blood pressure meds. I'm not on any pain pills for the first time in decades. And I don't even take my steroid inhaler for my reactive lungs that I was going to have to take for every day for the rest of my life. And I'm down about 90 pounds, all while being the least hungry and that I can remember in my life. And my wife's been very supportive. Actually, she was kind of doing this to start with about the time this all hit me anyway. She was looking at going keto. So looking at a whole bunch of people, I kind of took the class a little bit to kind of almost unlearn some things, because there's so many people out there with so many different ways and so many miracle things to eat and so on, that I really appreciated Dr. Westman's quiet demeanor. It's very comforting, when you hear it. It's like, yeah, we'll just do this. It's fine. This is no problem. And it's very straightforward. There's not a whole lot of complicated rules and stuff. And then the thing, I experimented enough, I can't help but experiment on myself, that when I see all these people doing all these fat bombs and sweet treats and all this stuff, it seems to me that they're almost planning on failing. They don't want to change their lifestyle. They just want to come up with a different way to do it that they still can keep the same thing. And I tried some of those things, and they don't work for me. If I start things, I don't even just stop losing weight. I start gaining weight. And so that's what's so attractive about this, is it's very straightforward, but that's not saying it's easy. I mean, life is like a gauntlet of things to try and knock you out of your keto diet, and whether it's a potluck, the C-store, you can't buy gasoline without running through the sugar gauntlet. And so, here you go. But I feel so much better. And everybody looks at the weight, but it doesn't seem to me that the weight loss comes first. It seems to me first you get better. First you get healthier. First you feel a lot better. And then the weight loss kind of follows along behind that. And it's more a sibling of those other things rather than the parent of those other things. Even though every day you hear, oh, weight is associated with this and weight's associated with that. Well, yeah, it's the same way I'm associated with my brother. But insulin is the father, and the father of a lot of things. And we have such an epidemic going on. As a state representative, it breaks my heart, because I'm represented about 3/4 of my constituents are Native Americans. And a lot of them are poor. And a lot of the kids are on the WIC program and everything. And I look at the way they're metabolically unhealthy before they get old enough to go to school. That's what we're doing to those kids. And I look back at, I was one of about 3 chubby kids out of 100 in my class. And now I look, and it looks like about 1/3 of the kids actually obese by the time they get to first grade. And 1/3 of people are supposed to be getting diabetic by 2050, and half of the minorities. And I go around my district and I look at all the fat livers sticking outside everybody's shirt. I don't think we're going to make it to 2050. And the thing is, we can't afford to do it. Something's going to happen. Either the whole healthcare system's going to crash, the whole economy is going to crash, or we have to change course. And it's so amazing to learn that salvation's not in a pill. It's just eat differently. It's really so simple. And yet, even when you do it, it sounds so unbelievable that kind of people don't believe it. So I know a lot of people have asked me, what's going on. They can see the difference. They can see that I move easier, that I, and so on. And so I tell them. And so I think we're really in the information age, that it's a matter of getting information out there. But at the same time, it's building the credibility and so on. I see a major swing. It's kind of just a question to me of when, because we can't continue on the course that we're going. And I see so many friends and neighbors who are so ill who don't need to be. And so I'm trying to learn. I'm trying to be, so if I share information, I can share solid information. I can share what actually works. Not necessarily what I think might work, but actual research-based information. and I appreciate that about the class and about Dr. Westman as well. So I guess that pretty well summarizes where I'm at.
Wow. Well, congratulations on your success. And how can we help you? I saw there was a post earlier today that people can write or send comments to the legislature in North Dakota.
Yeah,
is that right?
On Wednesday afternoon, we have a hearing on. I put in to have a metabolic study, basically, and of course the legislature's big idea is money, and people can testify online now. Thanks to COVID and stuff, they can either put in a written testimony, which honestly, it's going to be not a whole lot of in-person testimony or oral testimony, because with studies, we don't get, as whether to do them or not, we don't get that into them. But if people would send this works for me, or that would all be helpful to try and get it be a study that's taken up. And then the biggest thing is I'm not really looking at a lot of legislation, and as the state to legislate this. We only have 3 health insurance companies in our state. And the big thing is, if one of them blinks and starts to figure out how much cheaper it is to make people healthier rather than shove pills in their mouth. I mean, I was taking a handful of pills every day and felt not too good. Now I don't take really any pills, except I do a little 5 milligrams of amitriptyline every once in a while for my fibro and sleep. But it's just so simple and so basic and so doable. And then I look in my district, and the more people eat based on, that it comes food from the government or something because they're poor, the sicker they are. It's not so much that Native Americans are that much more susceptible or anything. Maybe they are. Maybe some of them have APOE4, and so on. But it's because they're eating based on what a dietitian is telling them to eat. And really in the state, there's a few people who kind of professionally know what to do, but they have to almost hang low and hide out because the dietitians aren't very happy with them, because the dietitians all know if you eat fat, you're going to be sick, you're going to be fat, you're going to die of heart disease. And it's all just backwards. And even we have our medical school teaching doctors and everything, and I read their physiology textbook. It's all there. Maybe the emphasis isn't right and stuff, but the physiology book's basically right. Then they get taught how to treat the different diseases. And I think one of the really bad things about medicine is it splits my body up into all the different separate organs, and I go to a different specialist for every one. And yet, insulin is affecting everything in my body. If my heart is bad because of my insulin level, it doesn't affect just my heart. Yet when I go to the heart doctor, he wants to treat it like it's a heart problem. Or I go to the kidney doctor, he wants to treat it like a kidney problem, and so on. And really, it's a whole body dietary problem that's causing it. So we really need to train our professionals differently than we are. Because I carried skin tags and dark skin and stuff for at least 30 years. Not a single doctor mentioned that that's a sign of high insulin. And if they'd known that it was a sign of high insulin, they didn't know what to do about it. And so I kind of almost rubbed their nose in it a little bit with a few of the doctors that I said, like, hey, I cured one diabetic, that beats you, and because most of them sit and practice and you have this chronic progressive disease. And it's true. If you follow what the standard of care is, you have a chronic progressive disease. We need to reverse course on this.
Wow. Yeah. Thank you again. So Spencer Berry is the doctor who used to be on the. Say hi to Spencer. I don't think he's. I don't think he's currently serving.
He's not in. Yeah. No, he was last session. But yeah, I might see him. I wouldn't be surprised if he shows up sometime during the session.
So you have the same language. It's amazing. I mean, anyway, he's a great guy. And then there was a dietitian who wrote a book just out now called The Dietitian's Dilemma. Her name is Michelle Hearn, Hurn, and she just said exactly what you said. We were taught the wrong things as dietitians, I'm upset with my organization. And so if anyone's interested in promoting the idea that dietitians can be part of the solution, Michelle Hearn's The Dietitian's Dilemma is a good one, because she had to fix her own serious health problem like you on her own, and going against her.
Yeah, and I'm an entomologist. I study insects. And yet it was shocking to me when I started looking at the scientific literature. And I love how the keto people actually put the science out there. That's so unusual. I can read a scientific literature and I can see, and I'm like going, here this is a good study. And here's this guy telling me not to. And that's not very solid looking stuff to me. I mean, it didn't take very long at all that I was willing to risk myself, my own health, doing it. And
well, you have
helpful to have guidance.
You have a solid science background, which most people don't, right?
Right. I realize, others don't have the tools right now that they can't really do it. And so it kind of needs to be packaged up and so on. But really, it's kind of, most of this can really be done at the public health level rather than even getting the general practitioners, shall we say. I mean, really, when you look at this, it's kind of almost before you get into the healthcare system is where most effective intervention could be.
Yeah, and there I think of the Nutrition Coalition with Nina Teicholz and her group as one that's helping or trying to help at the federal level. But that's like a long shot. I mean,
it's tough how much we can do. There's a limit to how much we can do at a state level when you got all these federal nutrition programs. I mean, you can't get the state workers that far away from the standards, but you can ask for waivers. You can ask for different things. And I know I've been trying to get different organizations to kind of do a test, try it out with a few people and see what happens, because it's so rapid. I mean, it might not be the best scientific study, but if you took 10 people on each side and treated them one way and treated them the other and just took their normal metabolic pattern and their blood pressure and everything like that, it doesn't take years of this to see, oh my gosh, we're making a change. So and that's the beautiful thing about the diet. I mean, I didn't know what I was doing and followed my continuous glucose monitor, and I was off insulin in a month. And at 6 weeks, I gave myself a glucose challenge test at 6 weeks. And my blood sugar after 2 hours was at 95. I mean, I was testing non-diabetic 6 weeks after starting the diet. I mean, it's the closest thing to a religious experience you can get. I mean, it really is. It's really a life changer. So I really appreciate what you done. It didn't take me very long to heal that.
But can you please post where one of our people should go to send testimony? Okay.
Just on the Facebook group?
Sure. Yeah, I think
I'll do that. Yeah, I didn't want to post links unless I had permission, and stuff. But yeah, I'll do that.
I saw it earlier, and we were trying to think, but it's not a political thing. It's a health thing. So I think it's awesome. If any of our folks want to get involved, I think it's great.
Yeah, it's really education. So it's more an extension type of deal, because I'm not trying to. It's certainly not partisan, and we're really not. Like I say, I'm really not trying to pass a bunch of laws. I'm trying to get the information out there in a public forum, where one thing I know every time we have a meeting is every big healthcare organization in the state has their people there watching everything that happens in front of us. So it's like advertising to them, more so even in some ways than the legislators.
The only other thing I can add is that I spoke at United Health in Minneapolis right before the lockdowns last year. If they are in North Dakota, they may have a low carb component for diabetes. So
they aren't. We've got Medica and Sanford and Blue Cross Blue Shield. There is a small insurance company in South Dakota has signed with Virta to do things. So it's getting pretty close. So
Virta is like the Tesla version of it's
Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, thanks so much. And let me, if you can stay around, I'm going to bring everyone on at the end just to chat again. But anyway, thanks again.
Yeah, I might jump on the road, and I still will have it on and everything, but we'll see, because it's going to get cold when the sun goes down.
Yeah.
So,
well, hey, you said it's 20 below?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. Kyle, are you ready? Thank you. Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing great. That was phenomenal. I mean, what do you add to that?
Well, every story is fantastic. Yours is great too. So thanks for coming on, and I'll just let you go.
Super. Thank you, Doctor. So, Esther and Marvin, those were very extraordinary, and thanks for sharing. And it's I do see some similarities in what we've all gone through. I was the husky kid in high school. I've always been heavy. I've always struggled with weight, and there's a whole bunch of reasons that have been posited for it. Now, I came of age at the same time that the whole McGovern, the McGovern hearings on nutrition, which led to the dietary guidelines, became not the law, but the food pyramid that you see everywhere. So I've been low fat. I did Weight Watchers, Jenny Craig, Shakely, Nutrisystem, all that crazy stuff. I had the best results prior to Dr. Westman on Jenny Craig. I've already joked that those little cat-sized tin cans of whatever they mashed into those cans were one of the 6 meals I had a day, and I was hangry all the time. And it was a real bear. It was a real struggle. And about 2008, I had tried Atkins. I was terrified at the prospect of the fact that all this fat was going to kill me, but now I had become desperate, and I've seen a lot of comments. I know that's been a shared concern. We've got a lot of anxieties that we bring to our dance on weight loss, and I believe a lot of that is because we've been working backwards from the notion that animal products are bad. And I know you can do vegan you can do a low carb vegan. I can't talk to what that means. But, in terms of animal products, saturated fat, and all the things I was told to studiously avoid. So it was in 2016, I saw my GP, and he had officially diagnosed me as obese. And I was just like, that's not me. That cannot be me. I mean, I struggled my whole life, but I'm desperate, and I'll try anything. And I work at Duke, and I work on the web development. I was going through some videos, and I saw Dr. Westman's, not the white coat video, but he had given a talk that was geared towards scientists and medical, a class of people well above my pay grade. And I thought, well, look at this. This is interesting. And he has his characteristic understated manner, which ironically got my interest, because there's lots of shrill voices out there right now telling us what we should or shouldn't do. And I muscled my way in on the 9-month wait list, just through sheer haranguing the poor office to get in. I got in. We had the conversation, and lo and behold, within 3 to 4 months, I had dropped the majority of my weight. I lost 60 pounds. Now, I know people get really wrapped around the axle on weight loss. Sorry to tell you, I'm a guy, and we guys lose weight more quickly. But the point isn't just the weight loss. Other things started to happen. Marvin mentioned skin tags going away. So did mine. These things I was not expecting to get better. I used to have what I thought was chronic. I thought I had arthritis in my knees. And I like to run, and I do exercise because I enjoy it. And I've been able to get back to that. And there's the pain is gone. So I don't know what it was, but it's not a problem now. And a bevy of issues had cleared up. So I do have a special message for the people that are out there struggling. And I know you want to see more weight loss on the scale. I empathize. I don't think that's irrational at all. But I do want to say we're talking about a better way of living and eating. And if you give it time, your body will miraculously snap together. When early on I lost weight so rapidly, I had a lot of loose skin. And, that's kind of my skin's tightened up because I'm just giving it time. I'm going to be 4 years low carb in the summer. So, Dr. Westman. And the one other thing I would say is, so I followed his page 4. And then as I got interested and I wanted to kind of press, I'm naturally inquisitive. So I started to check out other ways of doing this. And I like that Dr. Westman and Amy Berger are very good about not saying, do this, don't do that. They kind of want to hear you. They try to talk with you about what you're thinking and why. They never say, no, definitely don't do X. But there is a protocol. And I would just say, lean in. There. Dr. Westman's seen, what is it, over 10,000 patients, a huge amount of people. Amy is very active in the community, and she's got a great, non-crazy way of thinking about nutrition, and she's credentialed in nutrition. Dr. Westman could say I still have the, it's right there on my desk, right? There it is. So, they're the real deal. I love the discussion I'm seeing in the forum. Got a lot of insightful comments going back and forth, and it's extraordinary. And it's nice to see because we're taking the food pyramid, we're flipping it. We're not having 6 to 8 hangry meals a day. We're having just to eat. And when we do, we eat till we're full, right? What was Marvin said? He lost 90 pounds without ever being hungry. I mean, that's fantastic. So I am now at 75 pounds lost, and, I range plus or minus 5 pounds, but I don't weigh myself about in a crazy way about it. So, my story is thank you, Dr. Westman, for the clarity of how you present this, your common sense, understated tone. And, a lot of the younger in the medical community, the younger keto doctors kind of go a little crazy. And I like your tone and demeanor, and it makes all this so much easier. So thank you.
It made me laugh. There are some crazy young doctors out there. Let me see if I can bring everyone in. There we go. I think Marvin's in the car, coming in and out on the car line there. But any last thoughts? Thank you so much. I wonder if you had questions of each other. Again, thanks, Kyle, for helping with the admin work. Really appreciate it.
I forgot to say that. I'm sorry. Yep. I've learned so much from Dr. Westman, and I learned that by helping others, you learn. So yes, that, I'm just very zealous about all this. So I am an admin, and you've probably seen, with this blowhard always butting in on conversations. That's me.
No, I appreciate it.
And we love you out there.
There were a couple of questions that were lingering on what is total versus net in other countries. And actually, to lead on the Facebook group, the country, I'll contact someone there directly. But my understanding is most other countries have subtracted out the fiber from the total. So you have to add in the fiber and to the total to get the total. I know it's confusing, but they asked their experts, what should we put as total carbs? And the expert said, take away the fibers, but that's the total. So in the U.S., it's all put in the total, but in other countries, and it depends which ones. And again, if I know which one, I'll find out exactly. But that's where I made that mention in the masterclass. So total doesn't mean total outside the U.S. I guess if you have a product from another country that's imported with the U.S., it's important to keep that in mind. And then someone asked what fibromyalgia was. There's fibromyalgia is a condition where you have sort of painful trigger points on your body in the muscles mainly. And the nice thing is that keto helps that a lot. And weight loss helps it a lot as well. And fibromyalgia is thought to be an inflammatory condition, and there's the link with sugar and insulin, and lowering that will lower inflammation too. So Marvin mentioned he had fibromyalgia, and that got better. So thanks again. And Australia, got it. I don't know, Veronica, I'll get back to you just as soon as I can. Got a bunch of contacts in Australia. And that's so funny. Marvin knows a friend of mine from the OMA, Spencer Berry, who's a congressman in North Dakota. Sometimes it's a small world.
Well, there was also in North or South Dakota, Dr. Boz. Didn't she run for Senate?
She was in South Dakota, yeah.
Yeah. So it sounds like Dakotas are the place to be, except now it's too cold.
Well, Marvin, he said it was 20 below. So
no,
that's below zero. Yeah. Well, any other final thoughts, you guys?
Nothing for me.
Thanks, Esther. Thanks, Kyle. Thanks, Marvin, who's off driving in North Dakota. Be safe. And we'll see you next week and see you online.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.